Slanjava, welcome to Whiskey and Synths. My name's Dave and this is the #1 channel that blends whiskey drinking and music making. You have just found your whiskey fueled music production life coach, oh yeah. And if you're looking for some inspiration, music making motivation and have some fun along the way, you're in the right place. And in today's episode, we are going to be giving you a review of this amazing book, Feck Perfuction by James Victore. So this is probably one of my favorite titled books ever. And there's loads of reasons I think music producers should take a look at this book. It's absolutely amazing, all right? So James is like a famous artist. He's had stuff in the MOMA and in the Louvre, and he's like a designer mostly though, rather than an artist, I guess, more into design, but you know, those fields come together. And he's just written this incredible book filled with his own personality to help people like you and me jump over creative blocks and barriers and do what we want to do in our creative fields. Ours is music production, so I think this book is so applicable to everyone watching the channel. Now, what I thought I'd do in this episode today is have a look at the main chapters in the book, which cover a few different things. For example, we've got fear, you know, your voice. We've got starting, and also we've got, you know, action, habits, and purpose. They're the main chapters in the book. And I think each of these things will be cool to go through bit by bit, maybe share some nuggets of information from the book. And even if you're not into reading much, hopefully you'll get something out of today's video, some inspiration from me via the book. It might make you want to get the book or the audiobook version of it, and hope James doesn't mind me sharing some tips from it. And yeah, get this book, it's amazing. But here's some tips from it and how it can apply to music producers. So firstly, I just want to tell you a bit about the book and the author. I found out about James through another podcast called The Six-Figure Creative, where he was getting interviewed on it, and he comes across was like kind of a bit bold, a bit kind of no BS. I think he lived in New York for a bit, and you can imagine this New Yorker vibe, although I don't think he's from there originally. And he's such a cool guy, like really speaks his mind and wants to help people, obviously, even though he might divide opinion. And his book's amazing. You can tell he's a designer because it's kind of got interesting kind of smudges and smears. The text, even the title alone is eye-catching, you know, Feck Perfuction. Sure, you can interpret that he's not into perfection at all, but it's got such cool design details. Like even if you want to read the back of it, you have to like fold it out like that to actually read the whole back of it, which is like kind of cool. And it's got his cool like images and illustrations and kind of fonts and handwritten things all through it as well. So the book itself is like an amazing piece of design. So for that reason alone, I think it's quite a cool one to have in your collection. Let's get looking into the chapters and why I think there's some good lessons to be learned for us as music producers. So the very first chapter is all about finding your artistic voice, okay? Which really comes back to finding what makes you unique. And he really rewinds it back to the very start, where people might have been told things by their parents or family or school or society and believe they have to go down a certain track. And he really addresses that. And one of the lines I love in the first chapter is like, just because you were born on a farm doesn't mean you have to be a farmer, which I quite like. So, you know, some people want to be a farmers, no offense to them, but just because you were born that place doesn't mean you have to become it. It's not a predestined thing as well. And he says something quite cool. I love this quote. I'm going to read it out here as well. And it's, you can be a musician, an accountant, or a sexy, powerful, creative beast, but you have to be yourself first. So it's kind of like celebrating what makes you, you, and really leaning into that and not being scared to share what makes you, because every individual is special. And this book, kind of, that's one of the themes running through it that I like. So another thing on this theme in chapter 1 is a little bit about becoming who you want to be as well. So like, you know, you kind of who you are, but what you want to become. And he shares this story about being in the track and field team and how his coach was like, we're going to practice on this track on the other side of town tonight at the university or something like that. And they're all like, all the young people are like, oh, we're not allowed there. And he's like, just act like you own the place. And they did. And he said, in pretending to be brave, we became brave. So what he's trying to say is, pretend to be the version of you want to be, which I quite like as well. So this stuff at the start, it's really dealing with kind of like your own maybe internal issues and things like that. And I think it's something as producers that we can, if we address these things, well, that side or personality, once we let it flow into our music, it'll become much better music, I think. So chapter 2 deals with something we don't like talking about, we don't like thinking about, but it does hold you back. It holds you back from opening up that Ableton session or finishing that track or sending it to a label or showing it to your mates. It's about fear, all right? And in the very first kind of bit of this chapter, he says about how, like, refers it back to like a mythological vibe of like a dragon, and you know, the classic thing is bravery gets the reward, you know, it gets the jewels, the princess, whatever, that kind of stuff. And how they have to face the dragon. And most of us in real life don't have like a scaly real life dragon, thankfully. But what's worse, he says, is the dragon inside us that is like, you're going to be a failure, you're not going to be good enough, don't do that because you're comfortable here. And how we have to face that every day. And only by being brave and sort of facing up to our fears, you get that reward. So I actually have to make myself do these videos. In some ways I enjoy it, but sometimes like, oh, I could just chill on the couch watching YouTube or something, or Netflix. You know, you have to make yourself do your music production. You have to make yourself kind of keep training, getting better and better. And fear can really hold you back from that. And I think this chapter is quite a good one in kind of getting you over that. Especially something on the page right next to it as well. He gives a story about how he used to teach people to ski, and a lot of people hate falling over when they're learning, especially if they're adults. They feel like they look stupid, they're scared of looking stupid. And the first thing he tells people, he's like, if you're not falling, you're not skiing. It's just part of learning it. So basically, don't be afraid of failure, because it's a normal thing of learning and improving, all right? So that's a great lesson to take away too. And all this stuff I try and champion on the channel as well. So chapter 3 is all about starting. So the first chapter sort of deal with more like personal things, and this is like quite a practical thing now as well. But he says, unfortunately, most people start something by stopping, which is so true. How many times you had this genius idea for a book, a movie, a play, a song, but don't do it. So you've got to start things, and don't let inertia get in the way where you're just like, oh, you know. So it's really good to start things. There's a great quote from this as well, where he's like, too many of us are waiting to start, but whilst you're waiting, others are already living the life you want. The only difference between them and you is they started it, okay? So I've mentioned this in more detail in other videos, but having a plan, a goal, and working towards it, and not being in a rush and enjoying the process and going each step of the way, start it, and it sort of builds momentum, and that enemy of inertia can be vanquished that way. Another thing I love about this chapter about starting something is page 28, when he goes about he wasn't sure how he was going to do it, but he had a plan that he was going to move to New York and become the most famous, poster designer in the world, okay? And that was his plan, and he was going to give himself 15 years to do it, which seemed appropriate, and he had no idea how he was going to do it. But because he had that, it was like true north. It's like, that's where I'm steering to, okay? So I guess as a music producer, you might have a certain goal in your mind before you want to get to. Like, I want to make a track where I collaborate with someone well-known, like Kanye West or Beyonce or someone like that. Or like, I want to play Berghain or something like that. So have your big goal up there, and each little step is always working towards it. And some people assume success is like a straight line like that, but it's more like, you know, back down and then back up like that, ding. And even once you get to success, a lot of people say it doesn't even feel like it. It just feels like, well, what's next? So the main thing is enjoy the journey along the way. I just want to ask, have any of you out there read any good books on creativity and music production recently? Share it with me and the clan in the comments. If we put a comment on what books we've loved recently, or other resources as well that have helped you keep inspired in music production and your creativity, please share that below, and then that'll be a positive thing that other people can look through and also get inspiration from, because this book's amazing, but I'm sure there's loads of other great resources out there that you can recommend. So the next chapter is closely related to start, it's action. It's like the steps you take once you've started and continue taking with them. And it covers like a whole load of stuff in here. For example, it says the world is brimming with would-be authors, dancers, music producers, but it's only the ones that actually take action, like start and then keep taking action, that's going to do it. So what actions have you got in your plan? Have you got to mix that EP to then upload it to Bandcamp, to then promote it? That's why having this true north goal helps. You can keep following the steps along to each goal, celebrate each goal, then move on to the next one. And it's only by taking action you'll get there. So if you've been watching loads of my videos or anyone else's videos to try and get inspiration, really appreciate it. But also, if you've just been watching videos more than you've actually been doing the music production stuff, you might want to pause these for a bit and go and do some music production. So it's always good to make that balance between sort of education and inspiration and entertainment with actually doing your hobby, doing your passion, doing what you want to do. Another thing I like in this chapter about taking action is a story recounts about Abraham Lincoln. It might be a wrongly attributed quote apparently, but it's a good quote. A bit harsh on the tree, but basically said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll be spending 4 hours sharpening that, rude hand gesture, sorry, but sharpening the axe, all right? So basically, he's like, I've got a goal, so I need to plan towards that, prepare towards it. So this isn't aimlessly kind of taking in loads of content and advice and education and getting oversaturated. It's like, you've got your specific goal, an idea of what you want to do, and then you learn the things you need to do. You sharpen the axe, up your skills, up your research towards that goal. Because if you're just not really deliberately taking in, education and ideas and information, you might end up being a bit lost at sea. Whereas like if you've got a goal and then you sharpen your skills towards it, that'll help you get there. It's quite a cool bit of this book, I like that. So I like the next chapter because it's all to do with your habits. What do you do now you started taking action, you've started going forward. And this page here is called You've Got a Big Butt, which is quite amusing, very James Victore, quite funny. And basically you've got a laundry list of excuses not to finish that EP. I'd do this, but I'd finish that, but I'd mix it, but I don't have this plugin. Or I'd start recording the bass, but I don't have the synth. Or something like that. So there's all these buts. It could be other things like outside of music, like, but I've got all these chores to do, but I've got work, but. So, and all of these sometimes can be like legitimate excuses. You do need to spend your time doing important things for and with your family and all these things like that, and kind of support yourself with your work and that. But sometimes it's good to like really try and carve out the time and stop listening to your big butt and really trying to focus on this thing. If you know you want it enough, try to fit in the time, even if it's a little bit every day or a little bit every week. It's important to try and carve that time in your schedule and keep it sacred and get away from that big butt. So the last chapter is called I'm a Fake. There's a page that's got a great cardboard cutout of your man himself there, the author. And this page is called I'm a Fake, yeah. And it basically says, even though he's got a lot of success, what people be in famous galleries and museums and huge clients and all this kind of thing, he still feels like there's someone over his shoulder going to tap him on the shoulder and be like, you shouldn't be here. You're not qualified to do this. And I'm sure everyone feels like that sometimes, like, oh, am I qualified to do this? You might have even done degrees in music production and not feel like ready yet. Oh, I should do a PhD, or, but I'm not as good as this person. And, comparing yourself to other people. But James has some good advice on it. Basically, he's like, you and I don't need anyone's permission to be creative, sexy, or even weird. We just decide to be. And it was back to that thing of like pretending, just decide. You become the version of yourself that you decide to be. It's up to you. There's no one going to come tap you on the shoulder. There's no one going to come say, oh, you can't do that. So yeah, I think that's great advice in the last chapter of the book here. So in conclusion, buy this book. It's amazing. There's a link down below where you can get it, but get it secondhand, get it firsthand, get it on audiobooks, whatever, borrow it from a friend, but it's amazing, okay? I love this book and it'll be staying with me for ages. So thank you, James. And also, like I said at the start, if you want to hear more from James himself, the author, there's a link below for the Six Figure Creative podcast where I originally found out about him as well. And apparently he's writing another book, which I'm waiting for with lots of anticipation. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video, getting some tips, but obviously the book goes into way more depth, so I'd really recommend it. And on the channel, I only review stuff that I actually like and use myself and recommend. And there's so much in here for music producers and just as a sort of creative person in general as well. So remember, in the comments, leave a comment of other books you've liked and share it with other people watching the video so we can kind of get inspiration from each other as a clan and community down below. I'd really appreciate that. And it'd be good for me to find out other good books I don't know about yet. So that'd be cool for me too, and everyone else. And also, if you do need a quick start jump guide to finishing more of your tracks, remember I've got my 10-day challenge, 10 steps, 10 days, 20 minutes a day to finish more of your tracks, all right? And that's a free guide. You can click down below to get that free guide, and I'll send that out to you as my free gift. So I hope you enjoy that and find it useful as well. So thanks for tuning in today. It's been a pleasure hanging out here. If you're still at the end of this video, thanks for watching. Slanjava, enjoy your whiskey, enjoy your synths, enjoy your music making, and I will catch you later. Cheers.